are now listening to the Paul McGUIRE Report. This is Paul McGUIRE. On today's program, I want to talk about what could be called the coming event. And we're going to dive deep into what exactly does that mean, the coming event. I did a video series on that at paulmcguire.us. I've done chapters on the coming event in a number of my books. And the thesis remains, because when you understand what the nature of the conflict that we're in is, when you understand the nature of it, when you understand who it is that is behind it, you're no longer looking at reality kind of like a crazy upside down abstract painting. And all of us have seen abstract paintings either in magazines, pictures of them, or paint on canvas, or abstract sculpture. In fact, the Rockefellers in Manhattan and other places supposedly spent a fortune on financing what could be called abstract art, which was art that was essentially meaningless, confusing, and chaotic. And you say, well, why would anybody do that? Well, that's a great question. Why would anybody do that? If the end game of certain very wealthy people is to destroy the human race and enslave it, and specifically to destroy America so that you can enslave it, one of the mechanisms among many that you would seek to employ would be to conduct various forms of psyops or psychological warfare upon the unsuspecting population. Now, what do I mean by that? When you can indoctrinate people, and people are very easily indoctrinated, all you have to do is make up some quotes from art critics and film critics, or make up quotes from somebody that the public perceives to be, an elite. The public, or at least a great percentage of the public, will fall all over themselves attempting to emulate or mirror or whatever it is that they saw. So Rockefeller understands all this stuff because from the very beginning, the Rockefeller family, allegedly deep involved in the occult for many generations, the Rockefeller family secretly financed all kinds of abstract artists, abstract art sculptures, art that was deliberately meaningless, deliberately expressed chaos, deliberately expressed atheism, and there's no meaning to life. There's no right or wrong. So what you have to understand, on one hand, we have the conservative and the Christian community, and they understand a percentage of the truth. But the problem is there's a significant percentage of the truth that they don't understand. And by that, I mean they, for the most part, as a subculture, they don't understand the importance of things like art, sculpture, symbolism, writing, in some respects, but not all, music, television, film, etc., etc. So, for example, I do research all over the world, especially in Manhattan, because I'm from there, and I know I can find things and sources and sculptures and symbols and museums and all kinds of access to very important information, and I know how to get around town, so to speak, and locate it. So, for example, I was doing research around, excuse me, I'm forever battling the massive amount of pollutants in the air in Southern California, not only from the fires, but from the endless chemtrail bombardment. And you get colds, you get flus, you get all kinds of respiratory things. It's a never-ending thing, and it didn't used to be that way. So the point is that the Rockefellers wanted to indoctrinate and brainwash not only the lower level elite, but the American public. So you see sculptures everywhere in the Central Park, outside of Central Park, in the Plaza Hotel, outside of the Plaza Hotel. buildings themselves have become sterile symbols of existentialism and humanism. And many Christians and conservatives do not understand the enormous power that embedding symbols, embedding abstract art images and sculptures into the subconscious minds of millions of people. Many people think, well, those are just meaningless symbols, and they couldn't be more wrong. They're dead wrong. They're 180 degrees going in the opposite direction. The occultists, the Satanists, and the Luciferians have always understood since the beginning of time. They have understood the importance, the power that can be unleashed through art, through symbolism, through paintings and film and photographs and sculpture and architecture and everything else. Whereas Christians, even because I came from an artistic family, among other things, where my father was a professional artist of paint on canvas, and his friends were professional artists, and some of them were very well known, etc. So I was always immersed in an intense conversation regarding what art was and what symbolism was. So, by the time I was in grammar school, it was a no-brainer to me to understand the importance of media, art, culture, symbolism, et cetera, et cetera. So when I would do the Paul McGUIRE show a decade or so ago, it's been a long time, and people would call me and they would get me annoyed. And it was a nationally syndicated, interactive talk radio program, live Monday through Friday, 4 hours a day, drive time. And I would get constant calls from people like losing it and telling me that, oh, symbols aren't important, Paul. You don't know what you're talking about, blah, 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 blah. And symbols are important. And let me just give you one case in point, although there's many. A flag is a symbol. We would all agree. A flag is designed to instill patriotism, unity, and the coming together of a militarized force to protect a nation. And that's why every nation has a variety of symbols. It could be an animal, a bird. I believe the symbol for America is the eagle. And one powerful symbol is the American flag, the stars and the stripes. Symbols function to establish in your consciousness a positive or unifying belief system. I don't want to get into the whole backstory, because there is a backstory, you know that, and I know that, but when we get into the whole entry story of when we invaded Iraq and Saddam Hussein was in charge of Iraq, and I'm not here to discuss the merits or lack of merits of the war. I'm simply here at this particular moment to discuss a reality. Our military knew thoroughly, because the leaders in our military study psyops, or psychological operations, or psychological warfare. And so you can remember, and I can remember, when hundreds, if not thousands, of Iraqi citizens who were celebrating that Saddam Hussein was no longer the dictator of Iraq, they would throw ropes around these giant statues in the promenades and streets of Iraq, and then they would gather together to amass enough muscle power, and they would pull these giant statues of Saddam Hussein. They would pull the statues down until they cracked in two or they crumbled. Now, what were they doing? Well, the statues of Saddam Hussein represented a symbol of Saddam Hussein's power. And so when you're destroying the symbol of Saddam Hussein's power by tearing down his statues and shattering them, what you're in effect doing is you're destroying the symbols of Saddam Hussein, which in effect means you're winning a psychological warfare victory over Saddam Hussein. And you're saying on a subliminal level that Saddam Hussein is defeated, America has won this battle, and the proof of our triumph is the fact that we are our military is destroying the symbols of Saddam Hussein. And that's repeated with the French Revolution that paraded a topless woman riding a horse through the streets of Paris on the directions of the French humanistic philosophers. And this topless woman not only extolled the upside down non-Christian virtues of immorality, but the topless woman also extolled the false virtues of humanism, which is that logic, reason, rationalism, and the symbol for all that was a topless woman, would now rule the day. But of course, we know that even though the French revolutionaries won a symbolic victory, they did not win a perpetual victory, because what happened soon after they celebrated the goddess of reason, reason departed the humanistic nation of France. Humanism, logic, reason, rational thinking made a fast exit out of Paris, France, as the humanistic or French Revolution took to the streets, and they began literally these revolutionaries who were schooled by the philosophers erected thousands of guillotines lined up in a row, and I stood in the exact spot of where the guillotines were doing research and speaking in Paris, France. And then the French revolutionaries began to behead or chop the heads off thousands of clergymen and pastors and Christians. It was a bloodbath. The people who were Christians or Christian leaders would be lined up to march to the guillotines, and then the guillotine would slide down with a sharp blade and sever the head off the body. They would catch the body in a basket, and then the head, I don't know what they did with the head. They disposed of it one way or another. But here we have this nation proclaiming that it is now the first humanistic scientific revolution in the history of mankind, which is the world's first humanist and socialist revolution. And it's nothing of the sort. It's a madhouse. It's total chaos. It's a bloodbath. It's anarchy. It's immorality. It's riots in the streets. It's murder in the streets. Why? Because humanism is based on a illusion. It doesn't work. And sooner or later, you and your friends and your loved ones, and you're the one that facilitates this. I'm the one that facilitates this. We have to step up our game so that we can be a positive influence for the people in our lives. And with following through on that in brief conversations with the people in our lives, we should be able to capture their imagination and redirect them into a truth that sets them free, rather than empowering them to march off into the insanity and madness that illusion always brings. Okay, you're listening to the Paul McGuire Report. I'm Paul McGuire. Be sure to visit paulmcguire.us. That's paulmcguire.us. We'll be back in just a moment. You are now listening to the Paul McGuire Report. This is Paul McGuire. Okay, so again, I don't want to keep talking about the fact that I'm coughing, but the pollutants in the air in Southern California due to the fires, due to the chemtrails. And speaking of chemtrails, so I was up really early, I think it was yesterday morning, and I think I videotaped them from my cell phone. And there were these pencil-thin chemtrail lines. And the way it always works, you have two kinds of jets. You have the commercial passenger jets, which shoot out jet exhaust, and jet exhaust is not a chemtrail. They're two different things. And then you have jets that are not commercial passenger jets. You have jets that are carrying massive tanks of the chemical components that compose a chemtrail. And what's being reported that's in chemtrails, which are, they start out as pencil-thin white lines crisscrossing aberrantly across the sky, kind of like a checkerboard minus the checkers. And I can see them from a unique vantage point because I'm up on a mountain. And so, unfortunately, the good part is I have a topical view. I look down on some of the chemtrails. I look up on some of the chemtrails, but I have a huge view, so I know what's going on. Also, this is not a good thing because I'm physically closer in terms of elevation to where the chemtrails are being dispersed. Most likely, the houses that are in the same altitude as my house, we're getting bathed, I think, in a more potent dose of the chemtrails because of the elevation of where people live. Now, in the chemtrails, and I've written about this in my books, like A Prophecy of the Future of America and other books, in the chemtrails is all kinds of toxic chemicals, allegedly radioactive chemicals, fluoride, lithium, um, different type of metallic substances. And these are not good for the human body or the human brain. They kill the brain, they kill the body over time. Now, people who are in a state of mental paralysis will look at the chemtrails and go into automatic immediate denial. Well, you and I don't do that. We do our homework. And so I know I could give you a list of the chemtrails that also compose the same component that conspicuously is showing up in millions and millions of bodies across America and the world. And that that chemical is a malleable metallic substance known as graphene oxide. Now, what I just said, I just want to illustrate something. What I just said in the last 3 minutes, I will get 1, 2, or 3 letters from YouTube and Google telling me that their advertisers don't like the content of my program and therefore they're going to demonetize me. They're going to cut off any potential advertising revenue I might ordinarily get. Why? Because I spoke the truth in love regarding chemtrails. I didn't name a corporation or an individual. I just spoke the truth in love about chemtrails in the hope that if we can get enough people educated, we can save millions of lives, prevent Alzheimer's, prevent dementia, prevent all kinds of weird diseases and the spread of graphene oxides in the human body. Now, one would think if you were rational and sane, that would be in a healthy society. There's not too many healthy societies, but in a healthy society, a person who decided to summon the courage to take a stand for the well-being, health, longevity, protection of the brain for the elderly and children, a person who took a stand on that at great risk in a healthy society would be rewarded, would be encouraged, would be financed, would be applauded. In a non-healthy society, an individual who is attempting to be virtuous by communicating the truth about chemtrails and other things, in a non-healthy society, and probably the most graphic example I can think of a non-healthy society would be societies like Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. The whole society was built around genetic engineering, the alteration of human DNA to create a master race, killing off 30 to 35 million Jews and non-Jews in concentration camps where they were gassed to death or burned to death in the ovens. This was a sociopathic, psychopathic society from top to bottom. This is the epitome of a non-healthy society. So anybody who lived in the society known as Nazi Germany, whether they were Germans or not, or whatever they were, anybody who lived in Nazi Germany at the time of the Nazis and Adolf Hitler and participated or facilitated in the death and the death agenda of the Nazis would be rewarded because Nazi Germany was an unhealthy society. The same thing is true to a significant degree in communist China. Okay, so there are other societies where they're more subtle, more oblique, about revealing the demonic nature of their true character. And I would suggest to you that America has been moving in a fast track acceleration. America has been moving faster and faster into morphing itself into a non-healthy society in using Hitler's Nazi Germany as a potential model. Because if you look carefully, if you look under the masquerades, if you take off the masquerade mask, if you take off the facades, if you remove the illusions and the delusions, and you look at reality out from under the swaying effects of a hypnotic state, you would clearly see, assuming you were rational, sane, and your critical thinking faculties were still intact, you would be able to discern and you would be able to perceive that America is caught up in some kind of psychic death spiral where evil, death, and all the things that go along with evil and death are compounding and multiplying in our nation right now. Why are they compounding and multiplying in our nation right now? I'll quote the words of just one philosopher who summarized why things are happening of an evil nature in America right now. And you've heard this famous quotation: "The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing." So if we look around and we don't like what we see, and we shouldn't like what we see, if we're saying, sex trafficking of little boys and girls and helpless people is not a virtue. Hello. The drug trafficking, like with drugs like fentanyl, or people were dropping dead like crazy. These strange chemicals that seem to have found their way in our bodies and brains. These strange chemicals, like one chemical in particular, graphene oxide, a malleable metallic substance, is found in the blood and the heart and the brain and the organs and the tissues of human bodies. And along with that, there is an epidemic of cancers, an epidemic of Alzheimer's and dementia, an epidemic of blood clotting type diseases that are clogging the arteries in massive ways and clogging the veins in massive ways. And there's a lot of lying regarding statistics. And the primary lying regarding statistics is that when people die, it's the job of the coroner or the hospital or whatever to do a medical examination upon the death of a person and to verify medically through medical procedures as to whether or not that death was one of natural causes, or there was foul play or murder or poisoning or something of that nature. So what's been happening to the tune of millions of dead people is that strange diseases, strange chemicals, strange things that they didn't even have names for a couple of years ago are destroying the immune system of children, young children, adults, seniors. People are dropping dead like flies. People that should be in super prime condition, the big time soccer athletes, baseball, football, wrestling, track, Olympic sports, and so on and so forth, basketball. People, men especially, but women too, who are on the strictest of diets and working out, et cetera, they're dying. Movie stars in record numbers, pop stars, celebrities, politicians, super wealthy. Just nobody seems to be immune. They're dying mysteriously all over the place. And the real reason for the mass die-offs are being covered up. They're being covered up. And so what does that mean to you as a mother, a father, a parent? What does it mean to you? I'll tell you what it means to you very succinctly. It means that unless you get off your butt and do some homework through alternative media and media that has a track record of real trust, not lying and propaganda, unless you get, and I'm not going to apologize for the word but. That's mild. Unless you get off your butt and find out what it is. See, a layperson like me. How do I research? It's not because I'm such a genius. I compare and contrast the same methodology that Paul McGUIRE uses when he goes and shops at the store is the exact same methodology I use when I do my research or look for documentation or look for scientific or statistical proof regarding a potential thesis or a potential issue. I use the same methodology that I use when I shop. What is that methodology? And I'm going to tell you, because a huge percentage of this audience right now, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about, because you, in your daily life, probably for many decades, have been using this exact same methodology that I do. Anybody who shops on a consistent basis, we all have something in common. We employ a very simple technique that most likely our parents taught us in terms of shopping. The name of the game in shopping is to find good, healthy products at the best price possible, getting the best customer service possible, and from companies that supposedly have integrity. In other words, if they're claiming not to have glycophosphate, the deadly weed killer, in their cereals, you want to be able to trust that if they said it, that this company has integrity. But if this company has a pattern, an historical pattern of lying about things like, is there glycophosphate in the cereals and the bread and the grains? And they tell you, no, we don't ever use that. And you do some homework and you find out they use it religiously. Well, you can't trust them. So you shouldn't be shopping from them. Okay. So what I do, besides all that, is I compare and contrast different food products in the store. I check price. I check quality of merchandise. So, for example, it's quite common in today's lying America. It's the American way to lie. Notice I was talking to this African American woman, and the only reason I'm telling you she was African American is when it comes to shopping and stuff, I seem to have this God-given ability to develop instant rapport with people from all different ethnic groups, religious groups, racial groups. I mean, we just instantaneously get along, laugh together. They tell me all kinds of stuff. I tell them all kinds of stuff. And the reason I'm able to have such bonding with them is because they know I'm not BSing them. You know, people can see into your heart. And I don't claim to be so pure apart from the blood of Jesus. But when they look into my heart, they know I don't hate them. And they like me. And I don't sell out either. I'm not one of these white liberals that's guilty for stuff that I didn't do, for crying out loud. And they know that too. And they respect me for it. Okay, so I was talking to this lady and she was smiling because I could see what was going through her head. It was like, I can't believe I'm talking to a white man about this and we're having a good old time. And he's just shooting straight. And it was such a relief to her. So I was talking to her about the fact that now when you go shopping, you got to shake the box or like if it's a carton or whatever you call it of oatmeal, you know, dried oats or cereal in a cereal box or name 100 different food products. And you'll notice the new American epidemic corporate game. Oh, I use the word epidemic regarding a corporate game. I will most likely, no kidding aside, I will be censored. I'll get a letter from YouTube based on AI, artificial intelligence, machine reading the fact that I use the term epidemic, not in any way, shape, or form in the medical sense. I used it as a term which is a substitute for the rapid business growth of a new business philosophy. So, hello, AI, translate my verbiage correctly, because you're hitting me with bots, algorithms, and you're deliberately suppressing my numbers. You're deliberately defunding and demonetizing me because your stupid AI system is programmed by morons, and your AI, at least at this point in history, it'll change next year, your AI system can't discern the difference in the multiple applications and the multiple potential usages of a word like epidemic. So when I've used the word epidemic on this program and other programs, many times there is no inference on my part whatsoever. I am not making some kind of allegory statement at all that has anything to do at all with a medical, biological epidemic, a disease epidemic, or anything like that. So do you understand that AI and machine reading technology? Get it right, because you're punishing me unlawfully and illegally. And this, of course, is documented. And many people listening are documented. Because one day soon, there will be a day of reckoning. So here's the point. I am strictly using the term epidemic in the non-biological, non-medical, non-disease oriented sense. I am using epidemic as a kind of synonym for a rapid super growth or explosion in a new kind of business practice. And this employment of the term epidemic is commonly used in all stratas of our society. To use epidemic as a substitute for exponential business growth or, new crazes and everybody liking Italian food or whatever it may be, is a legitimate application of the word. So if you're going to punish me for making a comment that has something to do with medicine or biology or anything like that, you're doing it unlawfully and you're doing it unfairly. And although you're very powerful, you're abusing your power. And I am now speaking truth to your limited power. You understand that, right? So the point is that integrity is not just about food companies. Integrity applies to every facet of American life, from the military to government institutions to religious institutions to personal integrity. Integrity is a widespread necessity if our nation is to survive. It must be for the benefit of all, no exclusions. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make is that this fast growth in a new business practice is to sell everything in a big box or a big package. It started with the candy bars. All of a sudden, the candy bar inside of the wrapper became at least 1/3 smaller or more. So most of the candy bars are now inside the wrapper. The wrapper is the same size that it was before. In most cases, the wrapper is now actually larger than it was before, but the candy bar that is inside of the wrapper is at least 1/3 smaller in size and weight, which tells you that the game that the big business and big food conglomerates are playing is to get as much money as you can through low-level trickery. And they try to get you to think that when you buy this candy bar, is that the candy bar inside the wrapper is going to be roughly the same size as the wrapper, and the candy bar inside the wrapper should be roughly the same size, with modifications that you have to place the actual candy bar inside of the wrapping. Okay. Cereal boxes. I'd say, what is it? 1/3 to a half a box of cereal. When it settles, you got a big carton, 1.5 by 11 squared type cardboard box with a pretty picture. But by the time that cardboard box of cereal gets to your supermarket shelf, the actual cereal content and the weight of the cereal content has settled down to about half the size of the box. So we could go down aisle after aisle after aisle, whether it's coffee, ground or unground. Anything that it can be organic or non-organic, but there's a game of deception. And the game of the deception is, and you see this cheating, lying mentality has permeated every facet of our society. So you can't escape it. They will always try to trick you by selling you a big package, and in contradiction to the big package, is the smaller amount, noticeably smaller, so it's a disparity between the actual food contents and the wrapping or box contents. And you all know what I mean, because you bought something. Like I bought the other day, 2 boxes of pasta on sale. And I tried to judge, how much pasta that would look like after the boiling water was absorbed by the pasta. But even after the boiling water was absorbed by the pasta, it didn't come anywhere near to the size of the cardboard box. So I cooked pasta for people, and it was significantly uh, less in terms of the amount, and would not feed as many people in terms of the amount as the picture on the box and the size of the box. And I was annoyed because pasta doesn't cost that much per box. So just don't lie to me. So, it would be better for you in the long run, because instead of getting 2 boxes and not having enough food, I would have bought 4 boxes of pasta and had plenty of food. And every box that was on sale was like less than $2. But the cheap mentality is embedded in the soul of America. And that is not good. So the point that I'm trying to make is this is, well, no, I was going to use a particular word, but in context, this particular word would have definitely been a no-no, because I have been penalized for speaking the truth in love. I have been penalized for warning you about certain facts regarding contents. Now, am I talking about the contents of cereal? Well, what have I been talking about for the last little while? Well, for the last little while, I've been talking about the contents of boxes of cereal and boxes of pasta and oatmeal. But that integrity spills over to every facet of society. So when you say, let's go back to, or let's go forward to contents in a box of cereal. They say it's got X amount of powdered cheese in it or whatever. But what if upon closer examination, you were able to notice that what they claimed in the contents was radically different than what they actually put in the contents? Or they obscured what they actually put in the contents by using fancy code word blinding words like oils. Oils could be motor oil, it could be anything. I mean, it's a very deceptive term. Okay, so there are many categories in life that if you're, when it comes to prioritizing the categories in life where you need the real truth about, like, the contents in a cereal box and other things, when it comes to what you're going to put in your body, like milk or food, those are the building blocks of your body. And so you want to know what you're putting in your body. And as a parent, a mother, a father, somebody taking care of an elderly person, or any number of factors, you want the truth. You want the facts regarding, are there contents, like in this box of cereal, in this oatmeal box or whatever, are there contents that could potentially poison me, kill me over time? What about the air I breathe? Is it legal and lawful? This will probably cost me. Is it legal and lawful to send up trillions of dollars? Yes, that's right. Trillions of dollars of large jets into the air. And I've been all over the United States, and the chemtrails are everywhere. And you're shooting out not jet exhaust, you're shooting out chemtrails. And when you look at the contents or the metals and the poisons in the chemtrails, you discover they will kill your brain over time, or they will kill you over time, and they will literally incapacitate your cognitive abilities, so you won't even have the minimal level of perception that you need to perceive that your life and your children's lives is in mortal danger, and that there's a clear and present danger to your very existence. So you understand why any responsible person, somebody especially who calls themselves a Christian, wouldn't blow people like me off, who's trying to inform them regarding what are the real contents, like in the cereals you buy, or if you eat a candy bar, or any number of things. And the overall concept is that whatever you put in your body, like if it's a powerful chemical, the very fact that it's a powerful chemical means it could powerfully help you or it could powerfully hurt you or kill you. And you need to know what it is. That's why at one time in America, our politicians actually did something very rare, but they did. They made it mandatory, and they didn't do a very good job of it. They did a half-baked job of it, but they made it mandatory to put the ingredients prominently listed on cereal boxes, food boxes, et cetera, et cetera. So the actual ingredients or contents are supposed to be posted. And if things are potentially poisonous or they're not organic, you're supposed to be notified in the ingredients. Understand how important that is? Now, we're moving so fast, we've become a futuristic, sci-fi-like society. So now, the average consumer, me and you, the average parent, me and you, we're faced with the nearly impossible task, but it's still possible, of having to understand what certain ingredients and what certain contents that we have never heard their names ever mentioned before, are there any negative effects to them? And this is important because, I've had a conversation with a number of dentists, and I've done my homework regarding fluoride. Fluoride depresses cognitive abilities, reduces brain function, reduces memory. Fluoride is a brain killer over time. As far as I know, and I'm willing to be corrected, fluoride does little or next to nothing in terms of preventing or reversing cavities, but it does kill the brain. The first time fluoride was used by any government was in Germany before Hitler took over, and an American engineer inspected all the water treatment plants for purity in Germany and all the surrounding nations, and he found a strange number of additive chemicals being placed in the water supply in Germany and the surrounding nations. One of those strange chemicals was fluoride. And the American engineer never heard of the chemical fluoride before. What was fluoride for? There was no scientific study saying it prevented cavities. But when he began to experiment with fluoride, he discovered that it, over time, would kill the brain. So we live in a society because of technology and recent discoveries, and because of artificial intelligence, where we have all these things in our skies, drinking water, you name any source of anything, and you are potentially under attack biologically from ingredients and stuff you may never have heard of. Like this American engineer, never heard of the word fluoride. Nobody did back then. So there are certain components that are designed and to a large degree created by AI. Artificial intelligence is creating certain things. And so we have things now like I'm going to use an easier to understand word for you. We have things that are being put in our food supply and other places covertly. And what they're doing is they're functioning as AI created, AI designed, computerized micro robots. And the name of the game is to put them in food and put them in cereal. And so the end game is that you will have in all kinds of sources, you will have all these chemical or so-called nutritional additives being added, but nobody knows really what they are or what they do in the long term, or some people know. And it's essential that you do know. I can think in my own life. I know a lot of people, or I didn't necessarily know them well. I was acquainted with a lot of people who died mysteriously of cancer during my lifetime. And a lot of it, people suspected, was the apartment building they lived in, the house that they lived in, had cancerous agents that were never disposed of properly. children or teachers that taught in classrooms where there were cancerous agents that were never disposed properly. And so it wasn't an accident or random chance that all these people died of cancer. They were ignorant of the fact that somebody with no integrity in the constructing of a child's classroom or the constructing of an apartment building or a house, it contained cancer-causing ingredients. See, this is what we're fighting. And then a lot of people can't believe it when you tell them the truth. So instead of being responsible and dealing with reality maturely, they go into a mind game where they turn off their brain switch and they just disconnect from reality, and they don't do anything about things that could kill them or their loved ones, when it is simple to do, it's inexpensive to do, and it just takes a little bit of homework in terms of getting integrity knowledge, and you could be setting yourself free and your loved ones free from what the Bible calls the spirit of infirmity or sickness, or what the Bible calls the biblical promise that if you follow God in every way, including your mind, that none of the diseases of Egypt will come upon you. What does that mean? That none of the diseases of the world system are supposed to come upon you. There are millions and millions of God's people in America and around the world that are dying because they have gotten diseases from Egypt that have come upon them. What is Egypt? The world system. You see, when you're following the dictates, the instructions, and the wisdom and the knowledge of the world system, the penalty may be death. That's why the Bible says that you're to follow God first, worship God first, so that none of the diseases of Egypt will come upon you. And again, the diseases of Egypt are all these diseases of the world system. Egypt is a synonym for the world system. It is not the will of God that the diseases of Egypt come upon his people. And right now, because such a large percentage of God's people just absolutely refuse to humble themselves before God and to do what God tells them to do, and because so many of God's people are ignoring the prophets that God has raised up, and these may be secular prophets or they may be Christian prophets. You see, if God cannot find a Christian prophetic voice with integrity, God will raise up a secular prophetic voice with integrity. That's why you have so many people who are not Christians. They're the ones taking leadership. They're the ones issuing warnings. They're the ones issuing announcements of the truth. They're the ones telling the public to stay away from this or don't take that or stay away from this. And they're doing it with great risk. Are they not prophets? Of course they're functioning as a prophet. So if you're going to ignore the legitimate voices of integrity that God is raising up, then what they're warning about, like a curse, is going to befall you, your family, and your loved ones. I'm not joking. I'm not telling you this for an ulterior motive. I'm telling you this so that none of the diseases of Egypt will come upon you. Now, God's people are tripping all over one another, trying to imitate the Egypt of our day. They're trying to imitate the world system, and they're dying. And they're dying over time, and they're dying incrementally because of it. God is saying to us, this is the way, walk ye in it. Listen to what the Lord is telling you. So right now, for example, I don't want to get super spiritual, but I know that the Lord is speaking to many of you individually and personally right now at this moment. And you know that what I'm saying is the truth because you can sense it. You have a heightened awareness right now at this moment that the Lord is speaking to you through this program, through the message I have on this program. The Lord is speaking to you now. So you have a choice. You can ignore what the Lord is saying to you now, or you can give it a heads up and you can listen to and obey whatever it is that the Lord is speaking to you now. If you obey what the Lord is speaking to you now, then you can be blessed and none of the diseases of Egypt will come upon you. This is a liberating truth. Now, what is facilitating the presence of the Lord visiting you now? what's the causative agent? The causative agent is simply this. It's not because of me and how wonderful I am and how spiritual I am. That's not the origination point. The origination point is simply that whenever somebody like me, like you, like even a secular prophet, whenever somebody is willing to stand up and communicate the truth with integrity and warn God's people so that God's people whom he loves do not get slaughtered, then the blessing, the presence, and the Spirit of the Lord will be poured out in a tangible and intimate way in wherever that environment takes place. So the reason you can experience the presence of the Lord, the reason you can experience the voice of the Lord speaking to you, is because truth is being spoken. And when the truth is spoken, it drives away the spiritual darkness. It's just that simple. So as you're in the presence of the Lord, make sure you honor being in the presence of the Lord. Don't take it flippantly. To the degree that you honor the presence of the Lord right now is to the degree you're going to experience a very high integrity, supernatural visitation of the Lord. And it may not be, fireworks in the sky and something like that. It may be simply the still small voice of the Lord is speaking to you. And he's telling you what to do. So he raises up people. I'm just one among the many that he raises up. And I'm asking you to, as you're in the presence of the Lord, as you're asking the Lord for wisdom, I'm asking you to ask the Lord how you can help Paul McGUIRE Ministries and Paradise Mountain Church, how you can help us to reach as many people as we can and as fast as we can to save this nation from destruction and rescue it. So visit paulmcguire.us. That's paulmcguire.us. And if you do those things, I promise you, you will hear the Lord speak to you. God will bless you. And greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. God bless you. This is Paul McGUIRE. Visit paulmcguire.us.